who have been in the legal profession for over 30 years and now want to share their experience and knowledge with you, the public. Hey, maybe they do know a little about something. Join Allan and Rich by calling in at 888-565-1470 or watching them on elkinsandfreedman.com on Monday nights.
Hello, everybody. I'm Allan Elkins, along with
Richard Freedman.
And here it is, Richard. A whole nother week has passed, and I hope it was a nice, profitable week for you.
Not bad. It could have been a little bit better, but I can't complain.
Well, if it wasn't good for you, it wasn't good for me, because you're my partner. And we made a few bucks. We have a few bucks.
A few bucks was the key word, a few bucks. Oh, but seriously, we did okay this week, and we helped a lot of people this week, so it was a win-win for everybody.
Thank God. I've got alimony payments and kids to support.
I know. Exactly.
Well, let me tell you what's in store for our audience tonight. We're supposed to have a nationally renowned attorney calling in on the telephone. I would have thought he might have done it by now, but some of those nationally recognized attorneys may have other things to do than to call the show.
Really? It's hard to believe.
Although I will say I confirmed it with his PR person. Here, I'm going to turn around here. Nobody's called in yet, I guess. Ken, correct? Nope, Ken's shaking his head. Let me just tell you, the reason that I sought out this individual to talk to us tonight is there was a case in the newspaper this past week, and the case involved a teacher, a middle school teacher, and her name is Kristen Nicole Sullivan. And the thing about this teacher, besides teaching the class, and I think it was a computer science class, she actually decided that I guess she wasn't quite satisfied in her personal life, so she saw fit to have a relationship, a physical sexual relationship with a 13-year-old. All right, I'm told now we have a call on the air.
He's on the phone.
All right. Mr. Herman, are you there?
Good evening.
Yes, can you hear me? Because I cannot hear you.
I can hear you.
Oh, there you are.
Yeah, that's better.
I certainly appreciate you taking the time to call in and chat with my partner and myself. And I started to get into this, and I guess since I whet the appetites with regard to this recent suit that you filed in federal court on behalf of a young man, I'd kind of like to talk about your background because you've actually had a stellar career. You know, I thought my partner and I were doing okay for ourselves, and then I read about your accolades, and it's off the charts. So, you know, here's what I know, and you feel free to jump in because I'm told I have a tendency to monopolize a conversation like a lot of lawyers. I know you have your BS from the University of Arizona. I know that you're a Case Western University school graduate, I should say law school. You got your Juris Doctorate degree in 1985, and I read in your bio that I guess at one time you were doing what type of law? Why don't I let you speak?
Sure. I was a commercial litigator for many years, and through the 90s, and in 1997, I got involved in a case on behalf of a preschool autistic child that was sexually abused at a school. And that really changed my career. And I got involved in that case really just as a favor to somebody to help them out. And it was really just opened my eyes, and it was a very rewarding experience because this family, like so many families with kids that are sexually abused, was so lost. You know, there's no roadmap when these kinds of things happen. And so I sort of navigated through that case with this family, ended up representing about 25 families, and started to sort of develop an expertise in that area, and it just continued over the years, where eventually I decided to devote my practice full-time just to representing victims of sexual abuse.
Yeah, and frankly, that's a wonderful thing. I like to try to keep the show light, but I can't think of anything that would make you feel better. And the flip side of this is and I'm going to tell, I know you've appeared on so many shows over the last several years, but you actually, you're attributed with coming up with defenses to statute of limitations. And just for the audience so that they understand what that is, why don't you explain the statute of limitations and folks, what I'm talking about is that that Mr. Herman actually sued the Archdiocese of Miami and was successful and recovered a verdict of $100 million. So that in itself is mind-boggling. But I want you to explain the difficulties when that case came to you and how you dealt with it.
Well, when I first got involved in cases against the Archdiocese of Miami, I faced the statute of limitations you mentioned, which is basically an artificial deadline created by the legislature that says plaintiffs have to bring cases within a certain number of years, or it's too late to bring those cases. And it was a huge hurdle because many cases are for adult survivors, meaning people who are abused as kids but don't come forward until they're adults, and there's many reasons for that. But in any event, I was able to use some what we call equitable doctrines of law that had already existed in Florida. One of them called fraudulent concealment, which basically says where the defendant, in this case, I argued the Archdiocese, knew that they had a priest abusing kids, covered it up, altered documents, along with alleging some other things that were necessary, that they were not allowed, the Archdiocese, to use the statute of limitations as a defense. And I will tell you, we continue to argue about that in court today, and it's still a developing area. But fortunately, in 2010, the Florida legislature changed the rules and eliminated the statute of limitations for victims of sexual abuse cases going forward.
Well, that's excellent, and as I said, you played a large part. Now, I don't see it in my notes, but I know you've had multiple cases against the Archdiocese of Miami, as well as other areas. How many times? And listen, it's easy to make jokes about priests and little boys, but how many cases have you personally handled against the against the church?
Well, just against the Archdiocese of Miami, I filed over 100 cases. But I filed these cases around the country against the church, but also I filed them against temples, against Baptist churches.
Yeah, we don't want to single out priests. I suppose rabbis can be just as offensive if need be.
Yeah, I mean, there's a huge problem.
And that was a joke. All right.
No, but it's true. I mean, wherever we see kids, we're going to see sexual predators. And so, my take on this is that the problem's actually getting worse, and that's primarily because of the internet. It used to be we had pedophiles who didn't necessarily act out and abuse kids. A pedophile isn't someone who abuses kids; it's somebody who has a preference for kids. The real danger, of course, is the pedophile that acts out and becomes a child molester. Back in the 1970s, some pedophiles were content just to sort of fantasize about it, and they would get their magazine from overseas once every 6 months. That would be enough to sort of satisfy their deviant interest. But now what happens is that pedophile goes on the internet, and within a matter of minutes, he has such an abundance of child porn that it desensitizes them, and they need more. And then you add into that the connection that they can have immediately with little kids. They're literally talking to our kids in their bedrooms through social medias, and that sort of gets them wanting to take that next step, and that's why it's become a very, very dangerous world out there for kids.
Yeah, and I understand, again, looking at some of the, you're actually credited with coming up with the term pedophile speak, and I guess that was attributed to you. I guess that you were a guest on MSNBC and other network shows regarding the Jerry Sandusky case. So,
right, and that came from watching that interview Jerry Sandusky gave, where he was sort of trying to justify his conduct with kids in a positive way, and what I was talking about is that's what pedophiles really think. They don't think they're harming children. They think they're loving children and acting in a positive way with them, which again makes it more difficult for parents and adults to protect kids, because we're used to recognizing danger when we think we see it. The man in the overcoat in the park. But 90% of all kids that are sexually abused are abused by somebody they know. So it takes place through somebody they know, through a grooming process where they're gaining the trust of the family, the predator's gaining the trust of the kid. And so parents aren't prepared for that. They say, "Oh, he was so nice to my kid. He was wonderful with the kids." Makes it tough to defend against.
Well, I also had a question. So what do you do to prevent this from happening?
Well, the best thing that parents can do is to use common sense, and that is look for red flags. So often I hear parents say, "You know what, I was a little uncomfortable. I wish I would have said something." And we always say err on the side of caution. And I actually just last week, as a matter of fact, I developed an app that came out on Apple. It's a free app for parents. It's called Safe Parent, and they can go on the Apple Store or the other stores, and it's basically a checklist of red flags to help parents have a conversation with their kids about an adult who's in their child's life. It asks questions like, is it your coach, and does he have the kid on the team? Well, if not, it's a red flag. It doesn't mean they're a predator, but it's a red flag that parents need to watch. Are they communicating with your child directly through social media, Facebook, through texting? Those are all huge red flags. In fact, the case that I filed last week against the school board of Broward County with that teacher, classic example, where that teacher started using social media to engage the child, and mother was not aware of that. And
well, I'm going to get to the specifics of that, and depending how long you can stay, I want to talk about that. But again, looking at some of your other notable cases, I didn't even realize, for instance, that you were involved with that Palm Beach billionaire Jeffrey Epstein case. So I remember that was, I guess it's not all that long ago, but just briefly, if you would, that was a high-profile case. Tell us what happened there.
Right. Well, he was accused, and there were criminal charges, and I handled civil cases. What he was accused of doing was having young girls, underage girls, coming over to his mansion in Palm Beach to purportedly give him massages, and then they were sexually assaulted during these massages, and there were dozens and dozens of girls that this was happening to.
I'm trying to remember, allegedly, how did he lure them into the house?
He had recruiters, and he had these girls in the high school that were getting paid $200 to bring another girl over to his house to give them a massage.
But how would they get there?
They would drive. These other girls would drive the other girls over. Then he had a whole network of young women who were previously part of his exploits, or new girls that he was just recruiting, and there was this constant influx of girls being taken over to his house.
Just crazy. And then also, I know that you had a hand in representing several victims of the Elmo puppeteer, which everybody, I'm sure, looking at this, remembers how I guess his name was Kevin Clash, was operating Elmo, and I guess once one or two individuals came forward, the floodgates kind of opened. But you also represented some of those individuals, did you not?
Yeah, I represent about 5 of those victims, and what you said is exactly right for many cases where victims, when they're abused, they feel like this power or control is taken from them. And because of the fact that they're groomed, and it's usually somebody they know, they're what we call compliant victims, meaning that the kids participate in sex. They're not typically physically forced. So they think that they're guilty of doing something wrong. They feel responsible, and they're ashamed. So typically they don't report it and they don't come forward. It's not until oftentimes that they see other victims that they realize that they're a victim as well. And that's what happened with Kevin Clash, is that one victim came forward, he was attacked in the press, and other men said, no, wait a minute, that's what happened to me too. He's telling the truth, and so I'm going to come forward, and it sort of snowballed from there.
Well, that's great. Now, I'll tell you, I know we're coming up on a break, but just briefly, what motivated me to call you is when I saw the article in the paper last week about the middle school teacher. Now, I have some questions. I know you filed suit. Why don't you tell what is your basis here in filing the suit against her? And the reason that I say that, some of the accounts that I read actually seem to suggest that he may have been the aggressor in the relationship.
Alan, before we go any further, I think we need to take a break.
Are we on break now?
And you can answer that question right after our break.
Can you hang around for a few minutes, Jeff?
Yeah, sure.
All right, thank you. We'll be right back.
We'll be right back.
Life is so overwhelming right now. The emotional and financial challenges are too much. More debt than you can possibly handle? Facing divorce or other family law problems? Injured and don't know where to turn? Where can I get solid, affordable legal guidance? At Elkins and Freedman, an experienced lawyer will explain options and treat you with humanity. They help people throughout Central and South Florida solve these problems. This is a law firm you can trust, and they actually pick up the phone. They have a 30-year track record of positive results, and they make legal costs manageable for people from all walks of life. Make the call, 954-372-2630. When you visit, you might even meet Tiffany, the office mascot. Elkins and Freedman take the intimidation and worry out of getting the legal help you really need. Call today, 954-372-2630, and begin to make sense of your life.
Okay, we're back, everybody. We're fortunate enough to have Jeffery Herman on the phone, a nationally renowned attorney. And I didn't say it, but you're actually based in Boca Raton, are you not?
That's correct.
And I know that you yourself have 4 children, I believe that I read.
Right, I have 4 kids. My oldest just graduated high school this weekend. And so, you know, I to me, this stuff is obviously very personal, and which is, you know, for me, it was when I first got involved, I was just so taken aback at the dangers out there that it was a motivation in of itself.
Well, that's terrific. Now, let's go ahead and talk about this Kristen Nicole Sullivan. From what I understand, Broward County middle school teacher. I think she taught some type of computer class, and I guess it's not allegedly anymore because she took 3 years, and I understand that she took the 3 years because she would not have to then be designated, I guess, a sexual offender. Is that kind of your understanding?
That's my understanding, which is a concern to me because, you know, what happens then when she's out and she goes to a school somewhere else and she's not registered. These are the kind of things, the reason we have these registrations is to avoid people not knowing what they're getting when they hire a teacher.
Right.
But in any event, so what happened with her is that she was a teacher and she met my client when he was 13 in the 8th grade, and she groomed him. She gave him special attention. She gave him gifts. She would buy him things. She became a confidant for him and would talk to him about all sorts of things having to deal with school and things outside of school, and eventually turned it into a sexual relationship. And she, this boy was compliant, like many of these victims, but went along with it, not understanding that at 13 years old, this is not appropriate, and went on for well over a year.
Yeah, I have a question. Do you think that people look at it differently if the perpetrator is a woman rather than a man?
Yes, they do. Absolutely. I mean, I you know, people, I will tell you, I get those comments all the time, and there is a difference because people look at it differently, potentially in the damages. So, for example, you know, one of the elements of damages that we see in these cases is where a male abuses a young boy. All right, just because of the stigma associated with that is a little more difficult, and so another layer of damages. But just because it's a woman with a boy doesn't mean it's not damaging, because it is. This kid still was a baby. A young boy, 13 years old, is not equipped to handle that kind of relationship, and now he is suffering the long-term consequences of that. It is difficult for him to have a relationship and to trust people. So even though there might be a different stigma associated with it in our society, it doesn't mean it's not harmful, and it's okay. It's never okay for a teacher to have sex with their students.
Yeah, listen, I realize the gravity. You know, the article also said the way that this was discovered is that I guess he got a cell phone for his 14th birthday, and that, quote, his girlfriend discovered the relationship. So I'm thinking to myself, and I get it, I'm not trying to make light of it, I'm thinking of myself in high school. Not only can I not fathom a teacher coming on to me, but I also can't relate to having a girlfriend at 14. And I'm thinking, again, I don't know the age of your kids, and I went through it, but I guess it's just we've lost the innocence that maybe we had. Either that, I was just too dumb to realize what was going on.
Well, there's girlfriends and there's girlfriends, and this boy, he at 13 years old, he had never had a sexual relationship before. The only sexual relationship he was having was with his teacher, and so the girlfriend, the 14-year-old girlfriend, was not that type of relationship. And so, people, little boys and little girls, call themselves boyfriends and girlfriends, but they're certainly more innocent, typically. And in any event, it is different because there's equality, there's the power equality and the age equality.
Well, yeah, it's very unfortunate. As I say, you do worthwhile work. Not to change the subject, but I read something else that I thought was very interesting, that you're somewhat of a steak aficionado. Okay, and let me ask you, because whenever I travel, I do a good bit of traveling. I'm married to a flight attendant, but I too like steak. So the first thing that I want to ask you, and anybody, this is on your bio. I read it in some article.
I don't think McDonald's counts.
That's right. Yeah, my partner eats the Angus steak at Burger King, but we'll exclude him. What is your the cut that you prefer?
Well, I prefer the New York strip, but I typically eat the filet just because it's healthier, and I like to eat the steak. But I've got my places in city to city, so I always try. Oh,
we're getting there. We're going to get to that because I happen to be a small fillet. I just can't eat like I used to eat. I just turned 59. I get the small fillet. Now, I saw you always order it medium rare. Okay, which
Correct.
Is what a steak aficionado should like to do. All right, so I'm going to throw out a few cities here randomly, and I want you to tell me best place to go for steak. Okay.
Okay.
First one, New York City.
Peter Luger.
Okay, that's what I thought
What
you would
about
say.
Las Vegas?
No, that's my next question. Las Vegas.
I don't have a place in Vegas. I really don't.
Do you ever go to Del Frisco's, whether it's there or someplace else?
I've been to Del Frisco's, not in Vegas though.
All right, because it's funny. I go to Las Vegas frequently, and I try to make a
Is that
point.
because you fly for free?
Yeah, it's absolutely because I fly for free. But that's where I get steak frites in France. That's what I want in Paris. But anyway, but getting back to it, it's interesting. So you tell me, okay, so you don't have anything in Las Vegas. What about Los Angeles?
Oh boy, no, you stumped me. I'll tell you where I
STK?
Chicago, Gibson's. I would say, tell me your local places. I'm in both places.
Oh, I'm going to get there because let me tell you, this is no joke. I have a friend. I doubt he's listening. He's my best friend. He eats at New York Prime every friggin' Saturday night. Every Saturday night. And I said, what the heck are you doing? Okay, so you tell me, what's your Boca Steakhouse?
Well, I hate to say, but I was at New York Prime on Thursday night and Friday night.
Twice? What, are you kidding me?
How many times a week do you eat meat?
Nah, just a few times. Just happened to work out that way. So it was adult night Thursday night, and then I took all my kids for my daughter's graduation Friday night. So.
That's great. I'm sure you know my friend. Maybe I'll give you a call off the air because I said you got to mix it up a little. Now, unlike my partner, did you have to pay both Thursday and Friday night? He never picks up a bill. Did you have to pick him up both nights?
I paid, yeah.
All right, well,
That's not true. I do pick it up, and then I hand it over to somebody else.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, he picks it up. He hands it over to me. That's kind of how it goes.
That's what a partnership's all about.
Then he goes to pay the tip. This is probably information you don't need. And then I said, Richard, this 12% stuff just isn't going to work in a nice place. No, I kid you not. No, it's more like he's lucky if he's 15%, but I'm sure you're a 20% guy.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I can't tell you how happy I am. You do just some great work. You're legitimately a good guy. Is there any kind of plug? Not that you need it. I know that you have and that individual that you have working for you doing your PR, she's right up on it. So I applaud you on that.
Kayla's great. Yeah, she's my media director in house and does a great job. But, the only plug I would give is for victims, and is that so many victims suffer in silence, and that's the worst thing they can do. The beginning to healing is to come forward and tell somebody your story so you can begin the healing process, whether it's a family member, whether it's a professional. But I always like to leave victims with the message that you don't have to suffer in silence and to come forward and get help. It's never too late to begin the healing process.
All right, and anybody that wants to reach you, if you'd like to throw out a phone number, you're more than welcome to, and your website if you like.
Sure. My website, and if victims just want to get information about what to do when they've been abused or how to look for red flags, my website is hermanlaw.com. Just how it sounds, hermanlaw.com. And the phone number, 305-931-2200. It's the Miami number, but my office now is moved up to Boca as of 2 months ago. So.
All right, excellent. Anything else you want to ask, Richard? Or?
Just on a serious note, you didn't touch on it, but or I don't think you did, is that children that are abused by other family members, siblings or a grandparent, how often do you see that?
Oh, I get calls or emails on incest cases every day. It's obviously a huge problem, and unfortunately, many of those cases I can't do anything about simply as a practical matter because I do civil cases on a contingency fee basis, and so I don't typically sue individuals. And so in those cases, I try to point them in the right direction and get them help and to do what I can do, but it's frustrating.
Well, Mr. Herman, you're a good man. We appreciate you spending this last 25 minutes or so with us, and have to look each other up one of these days. You're a person that is worthwhile to know.
Thank you. I'd love to have a steak with you.
All right, thanks for being with us.
Thank you very much.
All right, guys, thanks.
Thanks.
Well, that was certainly interesting.
Yeah, that was very interesting. I didn't realize how.
Yeah, look, it's such a serious matter, and we tend to, at least me, sometimes you make light. I look at this teacher, and I think of these other cases that I've seen. Teachers are beautiful girls. I know that our producer had the teacher in question up on the screen. I don't know if she's there anymore, but my goodness, you think how bad do things have to be, or how sick an individual have to be that you have to go after 13-year-old students?
You'd think somebody like that, she could find somebody her own age.
Yeah, then again, Richard, you saw her picture, and I'm not so sure. But again, I don't want to make light of it.
Right.
Well,
it's sad.
Yeah, I guess we have about a minute or so left, and I guess we will be live next week, yes. Memorial Day, and it's interesting.
I want everybody to know that we're going to be here next week on Memorial Day, at same time at 6 o'clock. So, please listen in and be involved.
And I've got already a story that I'm working on next week, which is very interesting. So I hope everybody that watches tonight tunes back in, tells your friends about us. I hear the music, so I'm going to say good night to you, and we'll see you next week.
Good night, and we'll see you next Monday.
You've been hearing Elkins and Freedman's Know Nothing Show, where maybe you learned a little something today. To reach their offices, call 954-772-6014 or 561-738-5988. Out of area, call 800-922-1277. And tune in again next time for more Elkins and Freedman. The opinions expressed on the preceding sponsored program were strictly those of its hosts, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of this station, its staff, management, or sponsors. Life is so overwhelming right now. The emotional and financial challenges are too much. More debt than you can possibly handle.